what is going on? I want to welcome you from half court for episode 100. I am your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my guy, Troy Sergey. Troy, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, Sean. Hey, episode 100, like you said.
Triple digits.
Triple.
Yeah, triple
Pretty
digits.
cool.
Yeah, man, it's surreal. It's crazy. We have some festivities planned. We're going to celebrate a little later. This is part one of the festivities. Now, you might notice that there's a guy at the bottom that doesn't quite look like Jeff Iafrate. That's because our guy Jeff is out this week. He's got to get his tonsils fixed or whatever excuse he made up because he's better than us. But joining us instead is not only a former national champion, a head coach in his own right, a recruited player who's been dunked on by players such as Xavier Tillman. My guy, Chris Noblet! Chris, it's good to see you, my friend.
I appreciate you having me, man. It's good to be back on. Been a minute.
Yeah, Chris, people might not know this because the podcast has a couple more listeners than since we started. But Chris, you were the original co-host of From Half Court. You and I, back in the day, would get on this microphone every week and talk basketball. And dude, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much for making the time to be here. The reason why Chris stepped aside back then was because this guy actually coaches basketball. This guy's out actually doing a lot in the basketball world. And dude, seriously, I'm proud of you, man. It's really good to see you again. And a little fun fact, Troy, Chris, and I all went to college together. So this is going to be a really fun episode.
Yeah, it's been cool to see. Like I said, I haven't been on the podcast, but I've listened to you and seen it grow. It's been really cool. Really cool to see, man.
Hey,
so,
I appreciate it, man. Hey, I appreciate it, man. And honestly, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for, like people like you and Troy and, Jeff and like all the people that have listened and contributed to this podcast. Seriously, man, I'm super grateful. And part of why I wanted to have you on, Chris, was just to thank you, man, for helping get this thing started and believing in me from day one. It's just, yeah, man, it means a lot. And, just excited to be able to be here and talk basketball with you guys. But Chris, I do, before we dive too deep into like talking hoops and getting into the NBA and minutia and all that stuff, I did want you to share a little bit. I know you have an extensive AAU history. You've been able to like go up against some guys that are in the league right now, some guys that were some prospects. Can you give a little bit of a highlight of some of the players you've played against? Like, cause Chris, you were a stud yourself back when you were in high school and college.
Yeah, so I played for Indiana Elite Prospects, so traveled a lot, played in some really big tournaments, and probably the biggest one, or I would say biggest star, but was Miles Bridges. Played against him. I got dunked on real hard by him. Real hard. But no, it was one of those. I had just gotten hurt my very first game back. I go over to take a charge. I mean, I kid you not, I'm in the middle of the paint. He
didn't care.
My head, knocked me over. No call. It should have been a charge. They didn't call anything, just let it go. Played against him, played against a bunch of big time D1 guys. And Xavier Tillman, actually, he was one of the guys that we tried to recruit. We were recruiting some guys off Grand Rapids Christian. And he was already going to state at that time. But yeah, that was pretty cool. But yeah, played against a lot of some of the older guys you hear, like Eric Gordon, played against his younger brother.
Really?
So yeah, cool stuff. Played against Wiggins.
Man,
I guess he's probably up there with Bridges. But
yeah, I mean, former number 1 overall pick. I guess that might be up there for NBA champion. Like
whatever. Yeah, like, Golden State Warriors, whatever.
Yeah. Casual.
Yeah,
stuff.
but no, I've been pretty blessed. Played in a lot of Guessed a lot of good talent and been able to coach a lot of good talent too, fortunately.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Now, like, obviously, you're doing your thing in the high school scene in Indiana, which, Indiana literally like the basketball mecca, like the basketball world, which is crazy to think that with Troy literally being able just to go down to the Pacers Fieldhouse or whatever their arena's called and watch games for literally $5-10 a pop. I just can't believe we're all gonna have to go to a game next year. And we're going to have to go to Taco Bell after to see which was more expensive, the tickets or the Taco Bell, because I think it's going to be the latter.
Taco Bell.
I think, Chris, didn't you say you went to a WNBA game and you sat courtside for like $7?
Oh yeah, like that was years ago. Like back when the Fever played.
Oh,
When they were actually like good though, but they were really bad this year. But yeah, I sat courtside for like $6.
that is insane, man. Oh
Yeah,
my
that was like
gosh.
either the year they won the finals or it was the year after something. Like they were actually like pretty good, but yeah, it was like $6.
And whereas nowadays, I feel like whoever's going to eventually end up with Kate and Clark, there's no ticket in the house that is going to be $6. Like that is going to be like that's actually going to be a hot ticket.
Well, did you see? So she's at Iowa, obviously, and they paused their season ticket sales because they were selling them out so quick.
Really?
That's for next year. Yeah. Yeah, she's incredible.
Dude, so insane. Like she's a badass, which is crazy because the ticket sales for were the value of tickets for the Final Four this year were actually higher for the women's Final Four than they were for the men, which is crazy to think about because like it was literally 2 years ago that they were playing the tournaments in these bubble situations, and the men's was this super extravagant bubble, and like the women's bubble gym was literally just a dumbbell rack. And that like literally 2 years later, they're outperforming the men. It's just like, super cool to see. But guys, we have a lot of basketball to talk about. We have a lot of things to catch up on. There's a lot that has happened. So let's dive right into it. We always start the podcast talking about Detroit Pistons. And since there's a lot of NBA stuff, I want to quick get the Pistons stuff out of the way so that we could dive in and talk playoffs. I'm really excited to talk about big men because Chris Noblet, if you don't know, one of my favorite big men I know. We love talking bigs. So we're going to be doing that. But Chris, I did just let you know, you did just find this out before the pod. The Pistons on Sunday announced that Dwane Casey actually announced that he's going to be stepping into the front office in this next season and stepping down as the head coach. And according to Shams, according to Woj, some of the people that are potential candidates for this position are Ime Udoka, Charles Lee, who's the associate head coach for the Milwaukee Bucks. There's also Jerry Stackhouse, who was the coach who won a championship with the Raptors 905 in the G League, was a head assistant on a couple teams back in the 2010s, but also helped lead Vanderbilt to their first conference championship in the SEC since 2013. But guys, I just wanted to get your thoughts initially. Troy, I'll start with you. When you heard that Dwane Casey stepped into the front office, what was your initial thoughts? And very initial, who is your preferred candidate for the head coach position?
I'm not going to lie, Sean, wasn't a huge, massive surprise to me. I think all season long, this has kind of been in the back of our heads, moving towards the front. And I guess what was surprising, though, it was right after the game. I guess I thought it would wait a couple weeks. But, I understand, whatever. And especially knowing that Troy Weaver gave the decision to Dwane Casey to make. I thought really spoke volumes to both of their characters of just how much they respect each other and just how much they're in it together. And
Tom Gores
I think,
as well.
Right. Yeah. Tom Gores, throw him in the mix too. So I think the front office, as a, older guy, aging as he is, I think will be a smart thing. Because too, I think when you have a team like this, a younger face for a coach very well could gel with these younger guys as far as, building another new culture, another identity. that it's already been established by a Dwane Casey. So I think a Dwane Casey establishing, I guess, making the headway of a culture, then having another guy come in and take his place. I think there's some hope here. I think there's some direction from Troy Weaver and Tom Gores, and that still have Dwane Casey in there. And I think just hearing that press conference of knowing what Dwane Casey thinks about a Cade Cunningham and a Jaden Ivey and a Jalen Duren as really young stars in the making, right? And knowing that they already have those guys in house, and now it's just about surrounding the right guys with the guys that we have in house. I trust Dwane Casey in the front office. I really do. I think this is a better fit for him. And, it's hard to bring back a guy. I know you're missing a Cade Cunningham. I know you have injuries all year, but a team that wins 17 games, it's hard to bring him back. I feel like
it's hard to say run it back no matter what the circumstances.
Correct.
Yeah. I think, with Dwane Casey and Chris, I would definitely, I definitely love your perspective on this just from like an outsider looking in. I always said that, I never thought that Dwane Casey was the problem in Detroit. I never made the argument that he was necessarily the solution either. But what I did say is I think Dwane Casey was like the best coach for these first couple years of the rebuild in the sense that he's a steady hand. He's a veteran that knows how to build programs. He's had, he has a resume of helping young players, excel and to develop. And I think, even though this team didn't really have much success in the winning column, I think you saw exactly that out of the young prospects they have in the roster. I mean, Jaden Ivey from game 1 to game 82 is a totally different player. Jalen Duren at just 19 years old looks like one of the best offensive rebounders in the league. I mean, I still think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic here. And I think whoever's potentially following up Dwane Casey is in a really good spot. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I really like Dwane Casey. Of course, he won that Coach of the Year award with the Raptors back in 2018.
Yep.
So coached some good players, had a really good team. And I think, like I said, this comes from an Indiana guy, not a Pistons guy too, but he, I think, was the perfect guy for that job because, Jaden Ivey, he's one that I think he's going to be an absolute stud. And you could tell when he was at Purdue that just the way he played, he could absolutely take over games. I mean, even now, I think, they had Zach Edey who really took over this year, and they had some guys, but he was a whole different monster in games.
Yeah, they as good as Purdue was this year, they were just a different dynamic level when he was there. I think that tournament upset, you could tell how much they missed a guy like Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, because he could get to. He can get to the rim, finish above the rim, create his own shot. He's exactly what you want from a point guard, shooting guard, whatever you want to call him. He can do it all. And he's got good size on him too. But I think, Jerry Stackhouse would be a very interesting one for me. Him playing for the Pistons, back in the day, that'd be pretty cool.
Hell of a basketball mind too.
Yeah. Yep. And what was the guy? I'm sorry, the guy from Boston. What was his name?
No, you're okay. Ime Udoka.
Udoka. I think he was the first one we talked about this earlier. That popped in my mind because he was in that first, round. And we kind of talked about it be a full circle sort of thing.
Yeah. He was the other final candidate with Dwane Casey back when Casey was hired. So yeah, it would definitely be full circle.
He's a young coach with a really good basketball mind too. But you look at what he's had. He's got a lot of talent with Tatum and Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart. He's got a lot of talent, but those guys really stepped up under his coaching. They grew a lot.
As good as Joe Mazzulla has been so far. You can't take anything away from a team that's top 2 or top 3 in their conference. They still just inherently look like they miss Ime Udoka, like especially their their defensive prowess and everything that they brought, but also Will Hardy too. Gosh, what a coach he's been for the Jazz and everything that they've done. But I think I tweeted this earlier with my very initial thoughts. I agree with you, Chris. My mind went right to Ime Udoka and Jerry Stackhouse. Those are the two guys inherently that my name went to. Obviously, Charles Lee had associate coach, with the Bucks with Mike Budenholzer. I'm sure he would be an excellent option if Troy Weaver was if Troy Weaver ultimately were to go with him. I would more than trust that decision, but obviously I would always prefer to go with someone who has head coaching experience, let alone successful head coaching experience. And it's hard to beat getting to the finals in your first year. Now, the other side of this is if you're going to choose Ime Udoka, you have to make sure it's the right call, because he quite literally left the Boston Celtics hanging at the beginning of the year. And if that was almost any other franchise, that could have tanked their entire season. So, like, that's something that, like, you know, like alters a franchise. So I obviously, I don't think, you know, like, I think he knows that he can't screw up his next chance, but at the same time, you know, you have to do some extreme vetting and due diligence, do you not?
Yeah, if he screws this one, because he really, let's be honest, he screwed the Celtics right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, his coaching career is done, right? I mean, it has to be, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, like this is quite literally, like, I mean, it's not a 3 strikes and you're out like league. It's like, no, like at this point you have to be successful in your next position. You know, and like,
yeah,
I
if you don't win, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, like, I know Ime Udoka, it was mentioned in Houston Rockets job as well, but like, I just think where it would make a little more sense for him to be in Detroit is just because I think just that defensive mentality, that identity just fits I just think it fits his philosophy better in Detroit than it does in Houston. I personally think for Houston, and I would love to know your guys' thoughts, because they also announced that they're not going to be moving forward with Steven Silas. I think Kenny Atkinson would be awesome with the Houston Rockets. You guys agree?
Yeah, that'd be cool. And back to the Pistons quick, too. I want to make it clear that I trust Troy Weaver and Tom Gores and now Dwane Casey in this coaching hiring process.
Of course.
Because it is such a crucial, pivotal moment in the Pistons franchise right now, of a turning point this summer. We've talked about 2023 being the year that if it's Ime Udoka or if it's the Bucks head assistant, no matter what is whoever is chosen for the job, there's going to be extreme vetting.
Oh, yeah.
Extreme interrogating questions, right, of what you're going to do with a Cade Cunningham, what your vision is with the team, how you're going to mix with the big men, and if you bring back a Wiseman with a Duran, and just all the stuff we've talked about on the podcast. Those are going to be very serious questions that management is going to be asking a candidate for a coach.
Right.
And I just think this would be an exciting time if I'm a coach looking for a team I would be excited to apply for a Detroit because of the young incoming talent. And depending on where we land in the draft is even going to make things even crazier.
Well, yeah, let's be honest, that lottery chip, I mean, no matter what, like the Pistons have a top 5 pick in this draft, no matter what. Right. So if you're a coach, if you're a coaching candidate, how do you not look at that and go, I have a 14% chance at Wemby?
Yeah.
Yeah, should I apply for the Pistons job?
Yeah, do it, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, you are on the market.
That's true.
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, Sean,
you are going to be coaching D1 one day, by the way,
Chris.
Chris.
No, I'm not sweating over this decision of who the Pistons hire. I think it's going to be the right one.
Yeah,
I really have faith.
Yeah, I think so too, because in the reason why, like Chris, Chris, we talk about this with like almost any other sport. It's all about having the right guy from the top down, right? It's all about having that clear vision and that clear ownership. And I think one thing, like especially like even like on Tom Gore's end, like obviously he has like not everything's been perfect ever since Tom Gores has taken over, but in the last few years he has brought in legitimate basketball people and has trusted them to make basketball decisions and to build a basketball program. And, and I think, like, especially like with Troy Weaver, especially since he's taken over, like, yes, you can look at the records, the wins, losses, like that isn't great, but you look at the amount of talent just since 2020 alone. I mean, may I remind people, the Pistons, when Troy Weaver took the job, his best prospects were Luke Kennard, Bruce Brown, and Svi Mikhailuk. Now he has Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, Killian Hayes, and that's like, And that's not even getting into like the assets that they have, like, you know, the $30 million in cap space, the top lottery odds they have this offseason. Like, for the first time in a while, the Pistons actually have a direction. But on the other side, it's like, you know, like this is just as important as the number one pick process, because like you said, Troy, I mean, like, this is going to be the guy that's going to help, you know, shape these guys' careers. It's going to be making a lot of the decisions. I mean, it's a high pressure job, man. There's a reason why only 30 of these jobs exist. So, you know, it's definitely going to be their most important hire, perhaps in franchise history.
Yeah,
honestly,
I agree.
So I'm super excited about it. Another team, I do want to get your guys' thoughts real quick on the Pacers, just because, Chris, obviously you being a Pacers fan, Troy being able to be. I know you're shaking your head, Chris. They're still in a good spot, man. I know
they actually had a good year.
They did. I
Like,
know it didn't. I know it probably started better than it ended, but I mean, overall, like, I mean, Benedict Mathurin and Tyrese Halliburton, there's a lot of reason to be optimistic with what you're cooking.
Well, yeah, Mathurin, I mean, obviously I was really excited when they picked him, but Halliburton just had an incredible year. And I mean, and Buddy Hield had a pretty good year too.
Yep.
And then signed Miles Turner, you know, back to that extension, which I did not see happen. I thought he was
Same. I thought he was gone.
out.
Same.
Yeah. But he won this whole thing. He's like, yep, love the city. And they signed him that huge deal, which, you know, he had a pretty good year too. I would have been fine with him leaving, you know, early in the year, but had a good year. But Halliburton, man, he's a stud.
He's the truth.
He's good.
Yeah. Troy and I talk about this pretty regularly. I still think with, my take of calling the Sacramento trade one of the worst trades in NBA history is looking awful cold right now. However, I would still maintain, like, even though like Sacramento may have won the battle in the sense that they're the better team this year, they're like, they got what they wanted. They're a top seed in the Western Conference. I still think Indiana is going to win the war with that trade, because, I just think Tyrese Halliburton's a future MVP candidate, and I see no world where De'Aaron Fox or Domantas Sabonis get even close to that. So,
yeah,
I think this is about as good as the Kings can be, and I think with the Pacers, especially if they get a solid draft selection this summer, if they keep Rick Carlisle, which, by the way, the fact they have Rick Carlisle is I'll come back to Indiana. Why not? Like, insane. So, like, you guys are in a good spot, man. You really are.
Yeah, they, him coming back was, I think, one of the. I mean, it's the same thing in Detroit, right? It does start from the top, and he's got the resume, he's got the, he knows what he's doing. Back in the early 2000s, he had, those Pacers teams. There were a bunch of thugs on those teams, but like they were, they were good.
Yeah,
and so he knows how to, coach. And honestly, those guys, they weren't the best players in the league. They weren't.
Right.
But they knew how to play together and win games. And he knows how to bring those guys together.
Yeah, exactly. And, he's an insanely crafty coach. He knows how to help stars, propel and take to the next level to be able to go. I mean, at first when going to Indiana, it's like, it might be like leaving Luka Doncic. I'm sure feels really hard, especially when you go back to Indianapolis. But then, to have a guy like Tyrese Halliburton, that is not a bad consolation prize, man. Especially because that guy can actually play defense. But
yep. Well, and I mean, especially the way Dallas is right now, because I mean, they even got Kyrie and can't.
Oh yeah,
can't get anything together.
Oh, believe me, we are going to be. Oh, believe me, that is a situation we're going to be talking about here in a minute. But guys, I can't possibly move forward much longer without talking about this Rudy Gobert thing. I literally texted Chris as of recording this, because this happened literally a day before we're recording this. I texted Chris last night and I said, this felt like a Christmas present. The fact that this happened, not only, right at the end of the season, but also right before we bring Chris on. Because, oh man, do I love making fun of Rudy Gobert. And oh boy, do I love doing that with Chris. Chris, the Timberwolves are a disaster, man. I mean, I don't think when the trade happened, I don't think we said a single positive thing about it. on this podcast. I don't think we ever have said a single positive thing about this trade. And look, I think we have enough evidence at this point to say, and I say this, like from it seems like Rudy Gobert, and I say this like professionally speaking, is a dick. And it seems like everyone hates playing with him. And now that he's not a generational defensive player or even a guy that's much better than a Walker Kessler anymore, it seems to me like Minnesota just has to be feeling all sorts of buyer's remorse. And not only that, but to have your best, your best, defensive perimeter player in Jalen McDaniels just walk to the locker room, punch the wall, and break his shooting hand. All of this to happen in one quarter, in the final game of the year, a consequential one at that.
Right before your play-in game.
Like the entire reason you played this season to begin with, and you fumble it quite literally on the goal line. Like, what are we doing here? Literally.
Well, here's my thing too. It's, he hits Kyle Anderson, and that was one of the softest encounters I have ever seen in my entire life. Like, he hit him and ran away.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was like, that's honestly though, when we talked about this early on in the podcast days, but who wants to play with this guy anymore? Nobody.
Yeah.
Wants to play with him. So, but then, I saw today they, aren't letting him travel with the team. He can't play for the play-in game. And it's just like,
yeah.
Signed this contract, or it's crazy, man.
A guy that they traded 5 picks, additional players, pick swaps,
franchise guy, right?
Yeah, all these assets. He's not even traveling with the team to the play-in game. That's how irritated they are with him right now. Now, technically, he would be able to return for the second play-in game. But now you have a larger issue in the sense, yes, like this offseason, if you have to make a decision between Rudy Gobert or Kyle Anderson, well, sorry, Kyle, but, at this point, they quite literally can't trade Rudy's contract. There's nobody in the league. I don't think you could even give the assets that they gave away to get Rudy Gobert. I don't think you could give those to a team to take Rudy Gobert right now, especially with the contract that he has, especially with the play that he showed this year. And this is a team that clearly like when Rudy Gobert left, they started playing better. Like Karl Anthony Towns looked re-energized. Like he looked like life was good again. This guy just sucks the soul of every locker room he's in.
And those two guys together, there should not be a rebound that any other team has with those two. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And especially, Karl Anthony Towns, he can do it all. He's a real good player. But
yep.
Rudy Gobert, and even shots at the rim, they should be blocking every shot at the rim, or at least fouling somebody,
Right. But
that was the big issue, that Kyle Anderson was like, dude, why are you not rebounding?
Right.
That was the big thing. It's like, dude, you're 7 feet tall.
Yeah. Also he's like, Kyle Anderson's like, hey, can you block a shot? Hey, you're 7 feet tall. And apparently, the reason why Rudy apparently took offense to it was because he was playing injured or whatever. But it's it's one thing when, you have a guy that unexpectedly just comes out and is being a dick to you on the sideline. It's a whole other thing when this is who Kyle Anderson is, and then literally a day before there's this quote from Rudy Gobert talking about Kyle Anderson's leadership approach, saying Kyle Anderson's a really blunt guy and I don't take it to heart because he's just trying to help Rudy be the best Rudy that I can be, and I fully support that. That quote came out the day before that game. man, not only does like and I literally texted Chris. I was like, how on brand for Rudy Gobert to throw the most bitch punch in the most important circumstances, like at the absolute worst time. And like, I mean, all I'm saying is Donovan Mitchell this year looks phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
Like as far as like who deserves blame or what the heck happened in Utah, if I'm the owner of the Jazz, I'm writing so many apology letters to Donovan Mitchell. Like it's like I'd be running out of ink, man.
And that's so crazy because we even talked about, whose fault is it? Remember, we had a couple segments last year around this time of, is it a Donovan Mitchell fault? Is it a Rudy Gobert fault? And I think we came to consensus that it's like maybe like 75% Rudy Gobert and 25%
Yeah, like the
Mitchell.
truth somewhere in the middle. The water's a little bit murky. Nah, ain't murky anymore, fam.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And I think seeing how much Mitchell is excelling this season, giving the true keys to the franchise like Cleveland has been doing, dude.
Well, also playing, with two really good bigs themselves that don't seem like dicks.
Right.
And
Jared Allen
Rudy
and
Gobert.
Mobley.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's and again, it's not hard to see why the Timberwolves made the trade or why they did what they did. Alex Rodriguez and the new ownership group came in after Anthony Edwards put on this awesome performance in the playoffs against the Memphis Grizzlies. And instead of going, hey, this was a great playoff run, a solid foundational year for us to build on and incrementally develop this team so that when Anthony Edwards is ready to take the mantle. Wait, what's that? They traded 6 first-round picks? Wait, what? They gave up all of our future assets, and the only way we can salvage this is by trading Karl Anthony Towns at some point? Because you realize that's their only option to salvage this, right? Like, they're going to have to trade.
Right. And have it be majority picks that they're getting in return.
Yeah. Which, because Chris, I'm not a coach, but in what world does it make sense when you have a center whose entire skill set and entire danger is predicated on being a mismatch nightmare for bigs and being able to really dominate it, like on the perimeter? Why would you make that guy be a power forward so that you like that quite literally no longer is a mismatch nightmare? That's no longer really in the equation. Why would you make a guy who sucks defensively guard guys who are even more athletic and even more dangerous on that end? Like what? Like there's just nothing on like from an X's and O's standpoint that said schematically, like, yes, in a vacuum, like you said, they should be getting all the rebounds defensively. Like you could see like what they were thinking in their head, maybe, but it's like there's just been too many trades over the last couple of years where I just go, I'm sorry, do you guys actually like look at how basketball's being played? And like this is like at the top of the list.
Well, and it's just bad coaching. But what, I had a player this year that she's, phenomenal athlete. She could play pretty much anywhere on the floor. But it's like it's the same here. You don't put players in positions to get exposed, right? You do that to other players, and
you use it as a weapon. You build the team to create as many mismatches as humanly possible.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you can blow past someone on the perimeter, or if there's someone small, you put them in the post. But it's like in that case, like, what do you got? You trying to tank? I mean, which I guess, teams are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Which we can get into that.
Yeah, we definitely can. I mean, but the problem is if Minnesota's trying to tank, they pretty much traded all their picks away, like for the next decade. Like they're all in on this guy. I mean, and listen, there have been very few centers in the history of the league. I believe there's no center that's made the All-Star game on the other side of 30. Who's been an all-star on the other side of 30. And when you're a guy like Rudy Gobert and you already weren't the greatest on the offensive end, and now you're starting to take you're starting to just steadily decline more and more and more. Like, that it's the same thing with it's similar to Russell Wilson, right? Where it's like if you're great and ignorant, it's one thing because you have your play that goes and backs it up, right? But if nobody likes you and you stink, it's a little bit of a different conversation, right?
Yeah,
So,
and for him, it was all defense with him, right? I mean,
yeah.
it was literally all. There was no offense. It's like he put up his 10, 12, maybe, but they were banking on a defensive player of the year, which he did have.
Yeah.
But a couple of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a nightmare.
They were not counting on him to have his lowest block totals since his rookie year. They were not counting on that.
That's brutal.
So
I mean, I would say I feel bad, but I really don't.
No.
I mean, at all.
Well, no, because I feel bad for the fans because they're the real ones suffering. I mean, you especially this time last year, things were looking up for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then it's like, oh no, what once I saw that package, it's like, oh wow, Minnesota went and got Donovan Mitchell. I was like, wait, they traded for the other guy in Utah with all that? You got to think they were talking all this time about Donovan, and they're like, all right, well, we put all this stuff in the cart already. Could this get us Rudy Gobert?
You put Donovan Mitchell and Anthony Edwards together.
Yeah. No. God forbid that, Chris. Let's put Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns together. That's the duo we want.
But we knew from day one, Sean, that wasn't going to work. I mean, we got Greg Monroe, Andre Drummond vibes right off the bat, didn't we?
Oh yeah, 100%. Speaking of something, at least I knew wasn't going to work from day one. I kind of want to take my quick victory lap on this one. The Dallas Mavericks suck. I want to Troy. Do you remember what I said right after the trade deadline? Basketball is not played on paper.
It's going to set defense back 50 years, you said.
The only thing I got wrong is they set it back 70. They went back even further than even I could have anticipated. I mean, and guys, here's the tricky thing. Kyrie Irving did everything right. He was fine when he was in Dallas. It's Mark Cuban. It's Luka. It's the front office. It's Jason Kidd. It's everything else around it. I mean, guys, the Dallas Mavericks, I think Dirk Nowitzki might be shielding the fact that this has been one of the worst run organizations over the past 20 plus years.
Well, I don't know how you put two, I mean, honestly, two of the best, if not the best point guards in the league together, and I mean, you're right, they suck. They're bad. But I mean, I was telling somebody, I don't even remember who it was, but it's like, you put two players like that, it's not going to work. They both have to have the ball, you know, and Luka can't get his triple doubles, and Kyrie's not going to get his, 25 or 30 points a game. It's just not going to happen. And those guys have to, that's the best way to put those. It's not on paper.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it. You got to have your role guys.
Yeah. Well, because it's all about not only is it about yes, having a star next to your superstar is important, but it's about having the right star. I think if this year has taught us anything, I think it's shown us how good Jalen Brunson is, but number two, how important Jalen Brunson is. I mean, before the Knicks, brought in Jalen Brunson last year, they were sitting outside of the play-in. All of a sudden, they bring in Jalen Brunson. They talk about how much he's this human connector. He's this amazing guy behind the scenes. Now all of a sudden, the Knicks are actually in the 4 and 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. They're not even a play-in team. They're actually really good. Helped Dallas get to the conference finals last year, and now they can't even get to the play-in tournament. As good as Kyrie is, they are missing Jalen Brunson so badly. It's insane. But also, trading Dorian Finney-Smith was insanely stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Ungodly stupid. Because that team, if you talk about, like, because it's not like this team next year is like, oh, well, they have the 10th pick in the draft possibly to work with, and then all of their money is pretty much going to have to go towards re-signing Kyrie, which, by the way, they're losing a leverage battle to Kyrie Irving. That's how bad their franchise is in right now. They're losing a leverage game to Kyrie.
So we're saying Mark Cuban needs to stick to Shark Tank.
Yes.
Yeah.
For those reasons, I'm out on Mark Cuban.
Sean, is there any world where you straight up don't negotiate a Kyrie contract in order to save your money to get a duo that's mediocre to come along, Luka, that may be good on the defensive end, some 3-and-D kind of stuff? Is that a scenario where you have to look at it if you're a Mavericks fan or Mavericks GM?
It is a scenario, but here's the problem with that scenario question. I turn it right back around. Like, I turn that scenario right back around, and I say, who? Like at this point, if you're going to open up that spot and you're going to try and attack the free agency market, set aside the fact that really, for all intents and purposes, there aren't really any stars that you can go get or complementary pieces that fit that level. Like, sure, there's like ancillary pieces like Dallas, if they wanted to, like, instead of putting all their money into like a max level star, like maybe they could go get some like solid wing players to play alongside Luka Doncic. But at the same time, like, even like a guy like Cam Johnson for the Nets, like, he's going to have to be a sign and trade guy because the Nets have some leverage. Like, Dallas won't have anything to give up in that, right? Like, I just think at the end of the day, their options are so limited that the scenario of losing a Kyrie Irving, especially with the context of how bad the Jalen Brunson loss was, I just think it would be devastating because there's already whispers of Luka potentially requesting a trade as soon as next season.
Right. The whole world would shake. The whole league would shake if Luka requested that trade.
If you are in a situation where that's even being muttered, you are in a very, very sticky situation.
I don't think they realized, I mean, like you said, and Julius Randle had a huge year too, so that helped with the Knicks. But how important, Jalen Brunson's a good player, but there's a lot more than just on the court. I don't think they realize what he did, off the court, just bringing guys together, the chemistry part of things. And that's just, you see it at every level, but even at the pro level, it's not just a talent thing. But he can play, man. Jalen Brunson's a hooper. He's good.
I always reference the one of my favorite. I'm still reading, and this just reminds me I need to go back and keep reading the book of basketball. But still, my favorite chapter is him talking to Isaiah Thomas, and IT says the secret to winning basketball is that it has nothing to do with basketball, and it has to do with the team dynamics. It has to do with the players that are in the locker room all having a unified vision and being about something that's bigger than themselves. And I know a lot of times we look at guys in the league and we just go, that guy's a bucket, we should get him. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of guys in this league that are buckets. But at the end of the day, like, when you're putting together a team, it's like you said, like, you can't just build it on paper. Like, yes, if you were to look at solely the talent, and if I were playing 2K, it would be fun to put together Luka and Kyrie if I'm just looking to screw around on my couch, right? But in actuality, if we're talking about, okay, well, who do I have in my locker room? Who can help cultivate talent? Who can help bring people together? Like, as good as Kyrie Irving is on the court, we've just seen, there is nothing he can do off the court that can match the impact that Jalen Brunson clearly had in Dallas. Right?
Like, well, everywhere Kyrie's been, and you look everywhere he's been, it's locker room issues everywhere.
Cleveland, Boston, Brooklyn.
The only situation where Kyrie thrived was where he didn't have to be any leadership, where LeBron was in that spot. And listen, we love Luka as a player. He's not a leader. And as awesome as he is right now, he still has his immaturities in his game. I mean, there's times where he straight up doesn't go past the free throw line in transition defense. I mean,
Lazy.
like scouts have called, there is a scout that is called Luka Doncic, the worst transition defender in NBA history.
Oh, jeez.
And that might not be hyperbole. So, like, yeah. and so, you know, again, like that's far outweighed by everything else Luka does, because Luka is the Dallas Mavericks, which was the exact problem when they let Jalen Brunson go in the first place. You know, again, I'm fascinated to see where they take this, but on the other hand, I mean, to even try to begin to wrap your mind around what a Luka Doncic trade would look like, I mean, the only teams that have the assets, in my opinion, to even like consider that type of thing would be the Thunder, would be the Jazz, would be any of these teams that somehow got like 87 million first round picks.
Dude, imagine SGA and Giddy and Luka.
Oh, they would have to give up one of them. Oh yeah,
they give up SGA.
Yeah, they would have if they're going for Luka, they would have a very hard time holding on to SGA.
They'd probably have to give up Giddy, yeah.
Yeah, at the very least, they'd have to give up
Jalen Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah.
By the way, Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams, two guys I love, man. We talk about, so let's actually talk some positive basketball now. We got the playoffs. You know, we were just talking about crap fest for like the last 45 minutes. Let's focus on the playoffs, man. We finally made it. And I mean, specifically looking at the play-in tournament, I mean, we got the Lakers, we got the Timberwolves, but we also have the New Orleans Pelicans, and we also have the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, without question, the breakout star in the NBA this year. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but every time I watched SGA play, I was just in awe. Like there was, I can't recall a situation this season where SGA was outmatched or where he looked like he couldn't do anything. Like he always looks like he can get to his spots. He always is making the right decisions. I mean, he has the mentality of a traditional point guard with the body of a wing. He's everything you want in a franchise player.
Yeah, sorry, Troy, I feel like I keep interrupting or not letting you talk, but he kind of reminds me, I mean, he's older, but what Jaden Ivey could be or will be.
I see a lot of what Cade Cunningham could be in SGA.
I mean, he's one of those guys. I think you said it right. He always seems to be offensively and defensively. He's always in the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's which defense, you know, NBA defense is sort of hit and miss.
Right.
You know, what you get. But, you know, he can always he's going to find the ball in the right spot. He's going to come off screens the right way. He's going to run the floor, play defense, which, a franchise player. I mean, who would have thought, you know, coming out of college, I mean, obviously somebody saw it.
Yeah.
But he's really had a breakout year.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like I remember back in 2019 when I woke up and saw the news that the Clippers traded for Paul George and that they gave up a guy named Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and a ton of picks. And, you know, like looking back now, like obviously I remember that year where the Thunder were playing with Chris Paul. I remember just thinking, what are they doing? This is a total waste of time. But now looking back, you can see those Chris Paul fingerprints all over SGA's game, especially, you know, just his playmaking, his decision-making, his love in the mid-range. Like, just the Thunder took him in and did everything right with his development. And now, you know, it feels like every summer moving forward, they have 15 of the 30 first-round picks in the draft. They got another guy who looks like he can be a star in Jalen Williams. That's just a rookie. They have Josh Giddey, who in my opinion is a guy that can also be a star in his own right. And then you have my favorite player from last year's draft in Chet Holmgren getting ready to come back and to wreak havoc in the NBA. This team, man, their runway is ridiculous because they have all the picks, they have all the flexibility, they have everything they need to build a contender and more. Everything.
And with hurt Chet Holmgren, they still are in that.
Right. That's what's crazy,
right?
Chris.
Yeah. Where they hurt Chet Holmgren. I mean, Troy, it just is hard to picture any other team in the West like being able to stop these guys if they build this out right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. And talking to those picks, I'm not convinced they're going to use every single
Exactly.
draft pick, right? They're going to use it to bring in talent through trade, and signing trades too, whatever. But I do think it's going to be a fun couple of years. And I know we joked with Cohen, hey, can't wait for a Thunder Pistons finals, but give it 4 or 5 years, Sean. A joke might become a reality.
I mean, I feel pretty comfortable at the very least right now that the Thunder are going to be in that position over the next few years because, like you said, the picks they have as far as like the ability to trade. Not only that, but also if they were inclined to go and get a superstar or an all-star to go to pair alongside SGA. I mean, guys like Jalen Williams, got prospects that they have unlimited trade chips. It feels like they just have they have everything. They have everything, literally everything. It feels like it feels like any kid that's coming up into the league right now should be like going on the NBA website and like making a Thunder jersey just so they know what it looks like, just because every kid that will be drafted over the next 5 years is going to be an Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, that's just how it's that's just the way it feels, man. It's nuts. It really is. But I mean, I personally, like, regardless of what happens in the play-in tournament, I'm excited to see, where they go. But on the flip side, guys, all that Minnesota talk, like everything that's happened with them, the Los Angeles Lakers get to host that Minnesota Timberwolves team. And for all intents and purposes, are being gifted an opportunity to go play a wounded Memphis Grizzlies team. And I mean, guys, we could be talking about the Los Angeles Lakers going from being the travesty that they were just 3 months ago. Could the Lakers represent the Western Conference?
I still don't think so.
I don't think so either. But I mean, the fact that that's even a conversation tells you how terrible the West is.
The switch happened. And it came in a time where we were expecting a switch in the West to be a Dallas, right? And we thought that the Lakers were just going to cruise in the direction that they were, and maybe the Mavericks were to turn on the switch. But instead, the team that we've been very critical of the past 3 seasons, was the team that really turned everything off. And to a degree, when you have the talent like a LeBron James, who's, getting back into the swing of things now after an injury, and Anthony Davis, who hasn't missed a ton lately, at least in the past month. Hey, if it finally has taken you 3 years to click, and this is the right time to click. So it's true.
Yeah.
This is the right time to click. So, yeah.
Well, I think also, Chris, it's amazing what happens when you surround LeBron James with the right pieces to complement him, right? It's amazing what happens when you give that guy some shooting and defense.
Yeah,
isn't that amazing?
It's
It's almost like the blueprint was there for him the entire time.
Yeah, weird, huh?
Yeah, crazy.
He, LeBron, I mean, you put Anthony Davis, you got, obviously LeBron's the, one of the greatest players of all time. And then Anthony Davis, incredible when he's healthy. And then there were a lot of other pieces there that, they, on any other team, I don't think they would be good, to be honest.
Yeah.
But when you have a playmaker like LeBron or even Anthony Davis that as a big can find shooters, or find cutters,
I mean, Austin Reeves, I feel like just straight up is a guy that, I don't think he would have ever gotten the opportunities that he would have gotten if he wasn't a Laker, just because of the needs that they had on the roster. But the revelation that he's been because of the looks that he gets from guys like LeBron and being around guys like Anthony Davis. But I mean, you talk about too, Jared Vanderbilt, that guy is a STUD stud. And I mean, looking at what the Lakers have, as far as decisions this upcoming offseason, I wouldn't want to go get Kyrie Irving because I don't want to screw up having guys like Jared Vanderbilt on their roster. And I mean, even D'Angelo Russell, that second overall pick all these years later is finally starting to pay off. We don't have to talk about the fact that they had to give up picks to go and players to go get their old second overall pick back. We don't have to talk about why he left in the first place and all the awkward stuff with him and Nick Young. Remember that back in the day with him and Iggy?
I do.
Yeah, Nick Young D'Angelo Russell. He has not had the best reputation.
No, but you know what? He's been hooping, and people could say what they want, but really after that Lakers run, I know that didn't go the way everyone wanted it to go, but he was really solid in Brooklyn when he was in a really good system. The Warriors were never a good fit for him in the first place. The Timberwolves are a terrible situation, but even then, he still had some moments where he could hoop. I mean, being around LeBron, Anthony Davis, the most talented roster he's ever been on, I think this is a perfect role for D'Angelo Russell. And, I still think that if Kevin Durant's healthy, the Phoenix Suns, even with the limited experience they have to be the favorites in that conference. But, I mean, even against a Denver, I think this is an intriguing series. But on the other hand, I mean, speaking of the bigs, Chris, we're finally there. Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, all these guys leading the MVP charge. One of my favorite episodes you and I ever did was we just spent this episode talking all about big men. Just all about bigs. If you want to go find that, it's on Spotify. You can scroll all the way deep into the pantheon of the From Half Court episodes if you want to hear more conversations like this between Chris and I. But, Chris, I want to get your thoughts on this because we talked about it a little bit on the pod over the last couple of weeks, just the evolution of the big men. And, we talked about how, a few years ago, obviously, with the small ball era, everyone thought it was the death of the big man. At the very least, it's, I think if anything, it's been the death of the traditional big man. But I mean, Chris, I just think we've seen that position completely evolve and change over the last 5 years. What have been your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think, and it's not just changing at the pro level, it's changing at college and high school level too.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to play at the next level, because I mean, you look back, late 90s, early 2000s, you had players like Shaq, who's just absolute dominant big man. Earlier than that, you had Wilt, you had Kareem, you had Bill Russell, all these guys who were just they were going to play on the block and in the paint. They were not, going to go outside. Well, they didn't have a 3-point line back then, but, they were not going to go outside and shoot jumpers. It wasn't going to happen. Now, if you can't do it, you will not make it in the league if you're big.
And you only will if you're this insane rim runner and, this incredible shot blocker. But even then, your cap of what you can make is incredibly limited.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think now, that traditional big man, that's not really a thing anymore. It's not a thing anymore. You have to be able to shoot. You got to be able to, you do have to have some post moves, but I think that's and my favorite big in the league right now is Jokic. He's my favorite big in the league just because he's so he should not be able to do what he's doing. I mean, just
not at all.
Just he makes passes, makes shots, and he's kind of like Luka. Shouldn't be able to.
Yeah,
Luka moves so slow, and somehow people still can't guard him. But yeah, it is a weird time for bigs because, like I said, it's not even. I noticed it at the high school level too, just coaching that.
Yeah, I think I told this story. I think I told this story before on the pod, but one of my favorite memories of the last couple of years watching basketball, it was earlier this year. I think it was around Christmas time. I was at home with my parents, and they put on a basketball game for me just because there's nothing going on, and the Nuggets are playing, and so I was like, hey Dad, see that guy there, the tall center, thicker guy? He's like, yeah. What if I told you that guy's won the MVP award the last 2 years in a row? He looked at me and said, what?
Yeah.
Like he's like, you're kidding. I'm like, no, that guy's a baller. And it's quite, and I think people who don't watch Jokic they just don't understand, because again, it is the thing of, if you're like the casual viewer, it's like, that guy shouldn't be the best player on the court. But I think it's like you said, it's like you all these different bigs just have all these incredible skill sets. I think if there's any player that has really embraced the evolution the most, and I think has really encapsulated where the big position is going, I look at Brook Lopez in Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. And the player that he was, the incredible post player he was for the Nets. I mean, one of the best post interior bigs in the entire league, is now one of the best shooting bigs in the league, is a defensive player of the year candidate, is perhaps the most valuable in his career he's ever been, all because he completely shifted his game and evolved with the times. Right. And I think, like you see all these, I think, like with the small ball lineup, it's like, how do you beat small guys who shoot threes? Big guys who shoot threes.
Right. Exactly.
Right? It's as simple as that to a certain extent. But I mean, like, you see all these teams, like Memphis has multiple bigs that they're building around. Milwaukee has multiple bigs that they build around. Cleveland has multiple bigs that they build around. The Knicks have multiple bigs. Like people are saying, people think we're moving away from bigs. If anything, we're moving to more bigs. They're just playing more perimeter roles. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Real quick, I would love to get your guys' predictions. I think a great way to close the podcast. Let's predict our conference finals for each conference. Let's predict our finals prediction. And as of today, your pick for champion. I mean, obviously, this is beginning of the playoffs. Play-in tournament hasn't even happened yet, so absolutely anything can happen. But I would love to know where your guys' thoughts are today as far as where it's going. I'll go first, so it gives you guys some time to process and think of where you want to go with it.
I think we're going to be identical, Sean, but go ahead.
I think we're going to be pretty identical here as well. In the East, I have the conference finals being against the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks. I thought for a while there, I thought Philly really was about to have their time to get to the conference finals and to finally take that next step. Now they look like they're getting a little bit worse. James Harden's dealing with some health issues again. And let's be honest, I just have a hard time trusting James Harden from April on. I just do. So that's a thing. I do, however, don't see a world where the Milwaukee Bucks are beaten in the Eastern Conference. I have Milwaukee representing the East just because of their dominance. As good as I think the Celtics, if they're making their shots, if they're on fire, I think no one can stop them. The problem is you don't know when you're getting that on a consistent basis, whereas I know what I'm getting from Giannis every single night. And then in the West, I have the Phoenix Suns that are going to be representing one part. Man, the
West is just bad. So that's the...
really, the West is terrible, man. I mean, if you really if we're gonna pick, I have the Nuggets and the Suns as the conference finals. I think too many people are poo-pooing what the Nuggets have done this year. Like, they're a solid team. They're not great defensively, but I still think Jokic is good enough to get them to a conference finals. But I think we're going to be getting a Suns Bucks finals again. And I think Milwaukee's going to be winning it. Chris, since you're the guest, I am so curious to hear where your head's at as far as this playoff bracket. Who you got in the conference finals? Who's your finals, and who you got?
Okay, so I think Eastern for me was going to be Celtics Bucks. I think the big one for me was James Harden with Philly.
Yeah.
It's just, again, health issues, and I can't. James Harden in the playoffs, he ain't it.
Well, and just in their momentum too, just over the last couple of weeks, they're just not playing as well as they have been.
So typical Philadelphia when it comes to this time of year, right?
Yep.
But I think Tatum's going to have a really big. I think him and Jaylen Brown are going to have really big playoffs. I think they might. It's probably going to be a 6-7 game series in the finals. But I think the Celtics may get them and go to the finals this year.
Man.
So Eastern Conference with the Celtics, and then I'm actually in the same boat with you in the West with Suns Nuggets. I think KD can, single-handedly probably will them, to be honest.
But I mean, and then they still have Devin Booker as well, and like he I don't think he has to be amazing for them every night. Just go out and get 20 a game next to Kevin Durant, you'll be fine.
Yep, and so I think once you get, so I do have the Suns winning that one too, Suns Nuggets. I just don't think there's enough firepower from the Nuggets, like you said, defensively. Who's going to stop Kevin Durant? And then if you do put him, then you got Devin Booker.
Yeah,
who's going to go get his 20, 25, 30.
I mean, the Nuggets, their best defensive players are Bruce Brown and Michael Porter Jr. And Michael Porter Jr. has back issues and really not that great on defense. And Bruce Brown's a shooting guard. Yeah.
So, but I think it's Suns. I think you see Suns Celtics, and I think if that's the case, I think the Celtics beat the Suns.
There you go, man.
In the finals. That's kind of a bold take, but
it is. I mean, but like I think it is a bold take, but like I see your thinking though, because like as awesome as Phoenix is, I still feel like they need some more pieces. I feel like they need to bolster out their rotation. I do feel like they're a year away from being like the true juggernaut we all think they can be, right?
They need one more guy.
Yeah,
one more guy,
and give them a summer too. Just give them give Kevin Durant and Devin Booker a summer together. Good Lord.
Yep. Yeah. That's gonna be something. Not many teams are gonna be able to handle it all.
Yeah, 100%, man. Troy, I'd love to know your thoughts, man. Where you're at right now? What's your bracket looking like for this playoffs?
I'm gonna have in the East, same as you, Sean. I'm gonna have a Boston and Milwaukee Eastern Conference Finals.
All three of us agree on that.
Yeah, but I see a 6-game series and it's Milwaukee. Sorry, Chris, but they're unbeatable when they're healthy. They're still undefeated when they're healthy in the playoffs, because Middleton last year really hurt them in the semis, just not being present. So I think all of them clicking together. And if you watch, I mean, they went on a 11-game win streak this year, right? Didn't they? Or
almost 20. They went on like a 17 or 18-game win streak. Like they.
And okay, yes, you can say last year the Celtics stopped Giannis, but they didn't really stop him. They stopped the Bucks, right? And I just see full healthy. I mean, I see Milwaukee unbeatable in the East.
Yeah.
And the West, Phoenix for sure. Now, I want to say Denver, but I could see things playoff time. I know this is the most bold take I've ever made.
Say it. I think I know exactly where you're going.
Memphis Grizzlies.
What?
Memphis Grizzlies.
Let me get this straight. The team, I was like, I know exactly where you're going, and then you just completely subverted my expectations. Wow. I mean, first of all, no Steven Adams for the postseason. That's going to hurt. No Brandon Clark either. You're relying on Jaren Jackson Jr. to not get in foul trouble.
I got faith, Sean.
You have faith?
It's blind faith, Sean.
They might not even make it out of the first round, Troy. If they're going to face the Lakers, you think?
To be honest, I just wanted to disagree with you on one because I didn't want to have Nuggets and Grizzlies, but our Nuggets and Suns. But I could see a reality where jaw clicks. But Western Conference, you're right. But I'm still going to take them. I'm going to roll with them. I'm not changing my mind. But then I clearly have Phoenix winning, and I have a Bucks Suns matchup in the finals, and I see that game going to 6, and Milwaukee's going to win it. So
yeah, I think for me, and I think like not only Is it the fact that we haven't seen Milwaukee yet be taken down when Chris Middleton is healthy in the playoffs? I mean, granted, they had one run, but I mean, like at the same time, you look at, I just think not only is it the fact that you have a defensive player of the year candidate on your team who might not even be your best defensive player. You have, like there's 3 guys who could have that title. Like Brook Lopez is incredible at defense. Obviously, Giannis doesn't get enough credit for what he does in the defensive end. But I mean, the guy who continues to get forgotten in all of this, Drew Holiday, and the revelation that he is, like, just how hard he makes life on the defensive end just for anybody that he's against. And, again, with Boston, I just, with the reason why I'm so hesitant to go their way, and, and again, Chris, like, I can't blame you for picking them just because they're incredible. They really are. It's just, they're not the same team defensively as they were last year. They don't have that same fire, and especially like with Marcus Smart struggling as much as he's been coming back from his injury, him not being the same guy that he was, like that was a really important piece to their run last year, right? Like if
he's the energy guy.
Yeah, exactly. He's the heart and soul of that team, and if the heart and soul is putting out a whimper, that affects the dynamics of your team, right? So I just, again, I think after the Super Bowl, I just really was reminded of sometimes the answer's just right in front of your face. Like we try to be really creative and go, oh, well, Philly, they just look like the more complete team all around. It's like, no, Patrick Mahomes is just awesome. Andy Reid's just really good. It's like, let's stop being creative with it. Giannis is just, when I watch that guy play basketball, I just think to myself, how do you stop that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whenever I try to think of who's going to win the championship, it just comes down to this question in my head. It always comes back to, can this team be beaten 4 times in a row or 4 times? And I have an awful hard time picturing a scenario where Milwaukee's beaten by a team 4 times in a 7-game stretch. I mean, get 11 games, get 12 games. I could see you beat Milwaukee 4 times, but out of 7, they're that good.
And when push comes to shove, say that there is a game 7 in one of those series, say Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals, there's no way Giannis Antetokounmpo is losing a 4th game. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be thinking about those 3 losses as motivation in that game 7. Each loss that the Bucks take this year, because I don't think they're going to go undefeated in the playoffs, right? But each loss is going to fuel Giannis Antetokounmpo, I believe.
Well, and I guess the other piece of it as well is that when you think of a playoff run, you think of all the potential things that could happen to that roster. Like with Boston, I think of, Robert Williams' health is super important. Al Horford's health is super important. They need Marcus Smart to stay on the court. Even when Giannis looked like he tore his ACL, he came back the next game and dropped almost 50. He's like the Terminator, where like you just see him walking out of the flames and just like walking forward, like looking unfazed, like where is Santa Connor? Like that exact same like type of like toughness and like oh, this guy's dangerous. Like I just like Giannis just terrifies me, man. There's just no other way around it. That's why I pray for Victor at night sometimes, because that's like, I just think about the matchups that we're going to have against the Bucks. I mean, Wemby's the only guy in the league that's more physically intimidating than Giannis. The only one.
Yeah, big time.
He's just a freak athlete. I mean, there's nobody, you can't stop him. When you were asking us who's going to stop Giannis, it's just what you said earlier, Troy, is you can stop the Bucks, but it's like you have to, because Giannis is going to get his, so you got to limit everybody else.
Yep.
If you're going to beat him, because Giannis, he's going to get his.
Yep.
You know,
That's the
he's
real
just that good.
strategy. And that's why that, Boston was able to get over the hump. It was because, like that, without that scoring threat of Chris Middleton, which, by the way, it's not like Chris Middleton's like been consistently incredible this season. I don't think he's quite been the Chris Middleton of old quite yet. But like, if Chris Middleton can still get you 17, 20 points a game, and then you talk about the other additions they made. I mean, Jay Crowder, Joe Ingles. Just Milwaukee. I mean, even Pat Connaughton's a lot better of a player than people give him credit for. Like, this team is just stacked. And, again, just when Giannis, like, he's the only player that can just impose his will on a game. Like I think like almost any, like you see a lot of players like have like rough shooting nights or off performances, but the way Giannis plays is so forceful, so impactful that he doesn't have off nights because he just can't be stopped by anyone. You just can't. So like you said, Chris, Chris, it's just not a reality. It just isn't. But guys, this was such a fun episode. This felt like we were just talking before the podcast. Like, this felt like back like our trips to Applebee's or like some of the trips we do in college where we just all get together, order a ton of appetizers and talk hoops and catch up, man. This was a ton of fun. Chris, seriously, man, thank you so much for making the time and coming on. We're definitely going to have you back on again at some point, dude. This was super fun.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. It was a lot of fun. Like I said earlier, it's been fun to see where it's gone since we started it.
Yeah, man. It's crazy, man. Like, it just like very few it's hard to get a podcast to 100 episodes, right? It just is. It's it's hard to get a podcast to 10 episodes because it's a lot of commitment. It's a lot of hard work. And, just, again, I'm just grateful for, for you, Chris, for you, Troy, for Jeff, but also just for all the people that have been tuning in. And just, it's crazy, man. There's people who tune in from around the world. There's people from different countries who are from Half Court supporters. It's crazy to see. Like I had people come up and like ask to take pictures at a Motor City Cruise game. Like I saw a guy point to his kid and go, "I watch him on YouTube." I was like, "What the heck?" Like, this is crazy. Like, it's just unreal, man. So like, really, just when I all I can think about just recording this episode is how grateful I am that we got to 100, but also excited to see where we can take this because we're just getting started. But with that, folks, we want to thank you so much for listening to 100 episodes of From Half Court, and we will catch you guys next time for another episode of From Half Court. Be sure you're subscribed.